head over to your local Walmart and grab a few sprigs of greenery. I place the pool noodle next to the top of the planter and marked a line. Then I cut the pool noodle with a knife to the mark. After that, I place the pool noodle pieces along with some empty water bottles inside the planter to keep everything in the center and weighted down. Then I placed the sprigs of faux greenery inside the holes of the pool noodles and fluffed it all out.
You only need a few supplies for this project and it comes together in no time. Start by cutting your pool noodles down into shorter pieces. I did mine about 8 inches in length, which is a bit less than the height of my flower planter. Next, grab said flower planter, you want one that's fairly big for this, and set a smaller planter upside down in the inside of your pot. Take one bunch of fall flowers, tuck the stems into the center hole of your pool noodle, and stick the noodles down into the edge of the planter. Keep going all the way around the perimeter of the flower pot until you have the whole perimeter lined with pretty fall colors. It's a really simple way to decorate for any season or occasion without spending much at all. Grab another flower pot and set it in the inside of your pot, resting on top of that smaller pot that you put in upside down earlier. Fill your pot up with water and pop one of these cool solar fountains in it, and you've got the prettiest fall planter fountain for your porch or patio. This fountain comes with a few different nozzles so you can make different spray patterns too, which is really fun. And here's the best part about this project, because these flowers are held inside the pool noodles, you can easily pull those out and swap them with different flowers whenever you want. Pull out your fall flowers and tuck in evergreen stems for winter, or just swap things out for something different, and you've got a year-round piece that's so simple to refresh.
Grab some pots, plants, and rebar from your local home improvement store. Start by placing a generous layer of rocks or gravel, then fill your pots with your selected plants. Once your plants are potted, begin stacking your pots. Insert the rebar into the bottom pot, making sure it comes through the drainage hole at the bottom and rests on the saucer.
I've got an area on the side of my house that is just ugly with an old hose. Take some handles and also the base for a planter, and I'm going to put these handles on the side. Go ahead and put both sides on and make sure you get them nice and tight, but we're going to flip it over because we need to drill some drain holes. Once we got these holes drilled, turn it back over and we're going to use some succulent potting soil, and then you can begin to go ahead and transplant your succulents over to this base. On the planter though, we need to drill a hole about halfway up, and that's how we're going to put the hose in. So we also want to put some drain holes in the bottom of this planter. Now the last thing we got to do is put some wood in there. That's going to hold this lid up. Once you got it, make sure you do 2 on each side. Make sure you also get that garden hose through.
You're going to need 6 plain wood crates. I am going to use spray paint in 3 different colors. Once the paint is dry, I'm going to seal these crates. So I grabbed some 2x2 pieces of wood and I'm going to cut them down to size. Then you're going to sand down the edges and stain this. Now that the stain and paint is dry, it's time to lay this out and dry fit everything. Then using a drill, just add pilot holes and then 2-inch screws to hold everything together. Once everything is assembled, it's time to put it in place.
Ran down to Home Depot and picked up some beautiful flowers as well as 2 of these different hanging baskets. I removed the chain from both of the baskets and ended up removing the insert from one of the baskets. I opened everything up, placed my flowers inside, closed it again with the top frame on the top, lined up the holes, and added zip ties to hold everything together securely. My next step was to add the lights. These are solar powered lights, so they'll work great when I use them outside. Once it was all wrapped and ready, I was able to just let it sit in the sun for a few hours so that it could charge up. I grabbed 1 basket and 10 of these wooden pieces. I set to work staining them using these easy staining cloths. Once they were dry, I set up 2 of the wooden pieces vertically, and then I added the rest of my wooden pieces horizontally. Used some 1-inch nails and put those in place. I had purchased these 4-inch house numbers. I nailed these into place. The next thing I did to finish it up was to add some pretty flowers.
First step I'm going to do is start clearing out some of these big flat rocks. I got to get the base ready. Next step is to take a small 2x4 and screed the area. That helps level the soil. I want to make sure it is nice and level. Now it's time for the first block. Put that down, shake it a little bit so that it feels nice and firm. We're going to actually keep doing this up and down as we go. Once you get that base done, put that 2x4 across and make sure it's level. Now it's time for some construction adhesive. We don't want to put too much on. We just need to make sure those bricks don't slide and break and fall whenever we put them together. And then I cut a nice big piece of redwood board that fits on top. I grab these from the hardware store and I go ahead and separate the roots a little bit and put some nice potting soil in. These pots will slide right down in and take the form of the cavity that we're putting them in.
I scooped up this metal filing cabinet from Facebook Marketplace. I took it out of my van and I put it up on some raised ladders and I removed all the drawers. Then I'm going to come in with this rust paint and I'm going to paint the entire filing cabinet. Then I'm going to use my drill and I'm going to drill in some holes in the bottom. To weight it down, I'm going to be putting in 2 bags of pea stone gravel. Then I'm going to go to my yard and I collected all these old leaves. This is great because I'm going to fill up the bulk of the cabinet with the leaves. So I fill it up till there's about a quarter left at the top, and then I fill that last quarter with my potting mix. Then I'm going to go ahead and plant in my flowers.
Grab tin cans and a napkin for this brilliant porch decor. I washed 3 tin cans from the recycling, removed the labels, and scuffed up the surface with a wire brush. I wiped clean with a cloth and spray painted the outside of each can with Rust-Oleum paint and primer white spray paint. While that was drying, I spray painted some metal chain black. I set that aside to dry. I used a small drill bit to drill 3 holes evenly spaced along the top edge of the tin can. I drilled holes in the same spots at the bottom edge and the same spots again at the very bottom of the tin can. Then I cut the napkins into smaller pieces and cut around the birds. I painted outdoor Mod Podge on the tin can, placed the napkin pieces on, and sealed it with more Mod Podge. I did this for all 3 tin cans, then used a nail to poke through the holes I drilled to make sure the glue didn't close them over. I let the cans dry. 24 hours is ideal.
Look for flowers in a multi-pack that can be split apart. Take your laundry basket and drill several holes in the bottom with a drill. Line the laundry basket with a burlap bag or burlap fabric. Start to fill the burlap-lined laundry basket with potting soil. Fill to about 1 inch from the top of the basket. Cut the excess burlap from the top of the basket with some scissors. Starting with the second row of side basket holes, cut the plastic between 2 holes to create 1 larger hole. Then cut out the burlap from that larger hole to access the dirt. Take one of your plants and plant it in the hole by pushing it into the dirt behind it. It helps to use your other hand to grab the plant as it comes through the hole and press dirt down around it on the inside of the basket. Once you have the sides of your basket planted, you can plant the top.
Time to run down to your local baker and grab a big old container of cookies. But even though those cookies are yummy, what we want is that decorative lid. We're going to measure it straight across and get about 10 inches. Lay out some cardboard and we're going to pick a bowl that's round for us to mark. Just go ahead and lay it on the cardboard and take a marking pen and get you that perfect circle. Now it's time to mix up our cement. Once we get it mixed, carefully lay it inside the bucket. You can see the consistency here is like some really good pudding. Now, once you get the right amount in, you're going to go ahead and just shake it all up. Cut some strips of wood. This one is going to be full 10 inches across and the other ones are going to be 4 each. And then glue up the ends, lay it out and fold it in. We want to make sure that all the pieces of the wood fit inside the circle. Take some popsicle sticks and some hot glue. You're going to lay this across the top. This is going to be our clamp that is going to hold the pieces together while that wood glue dries. Flip it over. We're going to do the other side also. Once you get these pieces on, it's so strong, it's time to go ahead and drill them because we want to put these caster legs on there. All we need to do is take some hot glue, put it in, and all 4 wheels go right in there. Now it's time to take those wood and the wheels and we're going to just shake it back and forth. Let it sink right into the concrete. Let it dry for about 24 hours. Go ahead and turn it back over after that 24 hours is up. We're going to use a knife and we're going to start cutting away the plastic. We need to get some air in there. That's what's going to release our mold from the concrete. Look at that smooth, beautiful concrete.
Get the look for less with this brilliant hack. I grabbed a plastic pot from the dollar store and covered it in spackle. I used a putty knife to spread it and left it uneven for a textured look. While I was waiting for it to dry, I printed and cut out a leaf shape on paper. When the spackle was completely dry, it turned white. I spray painted it a chalky gray color. After that dried, I spray painted over top of the stencil with the stone textured spray paint. I did this all the way around the pot, and I decided to add a bit more textured spray paint over the whole thing.
To get started, we are going to be using spackling. So I'm just taking a simple spackling knife. We're gonna spread it on all over the pot. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna do like a stamping technique using chicken wires. You wanna just kind of press it in all over, and then we're gonna remove it. And you can see here where it's just gonna give it a little bit of almost like a beehive look to it. So we're gonna go ahead and let them dry. I'm using an indoor-outdoor spray paint by Rust-Oleum, and this color is heirloom white. So now that we have both coats of the spray paint dry, I'm going to go in and I want to add some of this multicolor texture by Rust-Oleum.
2 blue buckets that I found at Dollar Tree, cutting the handles off, glue them together. I'm stacking my other bowl on top of it. We're gonna take our pool noodles and we're gonna start cutting them in half, putting enough glue and then holding the pool noodle in place to form the shape. I'm taking caulk, adding it to the indentations between my pool noodles, but I'm just gonna be painting this entire thing white. Stone spray paint, and we are going to spray it.
You're not going to believe what I do with this vegetable oil. I added ready mix, concrete mix, peat moss, perlite, and water together and mixed well to create a thick concrete mixture. If you roll it into a ball, it should stick together, and then you know it's ready. Next, I oiled the inside of a 20-liter bucket using the vegetable oil, and I carefully packed the concrete into the bucket on the bottom and then worked my way up the sides. I went up about 8 inches, and it was about 1 inch to 1.5 inches thickness. After it dried for 24 hours, I flipped the bucket upside down to take it out, and I used a small wire brush with water to smooth around the top edge and remove any loose dirt and dust around the sides and bottom. Then I used a sponge to apply brown, antique white, and gray acrylic paint around the outside, top, and inside edge of the concrete and blended with a bit of water.
This plastic dollar store planter needs a makeover. Now that the paint is quite thick, a quick sanding with a sanding block, I want to cover the entire planter except the bottom. I want to brush on some dark gray paint. I want to add a little white. Finally, I want to seal the planter with a clear coat. It's time to fill my planter with potting soil.
I completely transformed this thrifted lampshade into the most beautiful home decor. I removed the shade so it was just the wire frame. I used a utility knife to scrape off the glue. Then I sanded the wire frame with sandpaper and steel wool. I wiped clean and then spray painted it matte black. While it was drying, I sanded a wood round, wiped it clean, and sealed it with gloss spray Varathane. I applied 5 coats and then sprayed the last coat with satin Varathane. I pre-drilled and screwed the wire frame and wood round together.
Today's project is going to require some clothespins and a small bucket. The clothespins are easy to take apart. All we have to do is use some hot glue. We're going to do that with multiple amounts all the way around. Now on the bottom, I'll grab some rope from Dollar Tree, put a little bit of hot glue, push it in place. Just keep going all the way around. Now it comes time for staying. Next, we need a wood or plastic hanger. I took a square, put it against the inside edge, and marked 90 degrees. We're actually going to cut on this line. Once we do that, turn your bucket over, and then we're going to hot glue our legs on. If we do 4 of these across from each other, it makes it nice and steady and stable. Put one of those last bits of rope that I have on there, bring it around to the front, and I'm going to tie a knot on it.
Who doesn't have a dozen cardboard boxes piling up in their recycle bin? I decided it was time to put mine to use. I started with my largest box. Using my slice box opener, I started by removing all 4 flaps of the box. Once all the flaps were removed, it was time to make a mini box. I secured the long sides with duct tape and began assembling the smaller box. Using duct tape to secure all 4 sides and bottom together, I placed it inside and got started mixing concrete. I also tried adding 2 wooden dowels to later drill out for drainage holes. If you are recreating this project, be sure to line your box with packing tape for easy removal. After waiting 48 hours, just to be safe, I removed the cardboard to reveal my large planter box. After drilling out the dowel holes in the bottom and giving my entire planter a sand to remove any jagged edges,
I'm going to turn my foam ring over here and I'm going to use some contact cement and I'm going to put that all around the edge of my plate and attach it to the bottom of this ring. And I want to attach the other foam rings on top with whatever you choose to use to get some texture. You want to go ahead and you want to just put that texture all over. I'm just going to use some Fusion Mineral Paint in raw silk to paint your foam and the plate. My planters are ready to fill.
Grab a couple plastic planters and bowls. I'm starting with 2 plastic planters. I'm going to place one upside down and then use a really strong glue like E6000. On top of this planter, I'm going to add a bowl. And then we're going to put another bowl upside down on top of that. And then finally a second planter on top. I'm using just regular acrylic paint. Then I'm going to add some baking soda. This is going to give a matte, chalky finish that looks a little bit like stone. Now I can just use a wide brush and paint this on to the plastic.
Grab some pots, plants, and rebar from your local home improvement store. Start by placing a generous layer of rocks or gravel, then fill your pots with your selected plants. Once your plants are potted, begin stacking your pots. Insert the rebar into the bottom pot, making sure it comes through the drainage hole at the bottom and rests on the saucer.
I scooped up this metal filing cabinet from Facebook Marketplace. I took it out of my van and I put it up on some raised ladders and I removed all the drawers. Then I'm going to come in with this rust paint and I'm going to paint the entire filing cabinet. Then I'm going to use my drill and I'm going to drill in some holes in the bottom. To weight it down, I'm going to be putting in 2 bags of pea stone gravel. Then I'm going to go to my yard and I collected all these old leaves. This is great because I'm going to fill up the bulk of the cabinet with the leaves. So I fill it up till there's about a quarter left at the top, and then I fill that last quarter with my potting mix. Then I'm going to go ahead and plant in my flowers.
I'm going to grab this trash can, take the top off, we'll use that later, and I'm also going to grab a rubber stair tread. Now I'm going to use a really strong adhesive to attach the stair tread or the doormat around the trash can. This is going to need to set to dry for about 24 hours. So I'm using clamps and some twine to hold everything in place. Now that everything is dry, I can remove the clamps and the rope. I want to make this look a little bit antique, so I am using a silver rub and buff. I'm going to put some drainage holes in this, and I am going to use a wood burning tool. I can flip the lid upside down and place it in the top of the trash can. And now I can fill the top with soil and plants.
Stretch out a balloon and then blow it up. Now take a torn piece of tissue paper and get it wet with some water. Gently lay it against the side of the blown up balloon and smooth it out. Continue layering pieces until the entire surface is covered. Then let it sit until it is completely dry. In a small bowl, mix together some regular glue and water, about half and half, to create a thin glue mixture. Generously brush the glue mixture onto the outside of the tissue paper covered balloon. Then press an additional layer of tissue paper pieces to the outside of the balloon. Pick up some gold and silver paper feathers at your local dollar store. Apply some glue mixture to the back of each feather and press it onto the outside of the balloon. Then place more layers of tissue paper pieces on top of the feathers and adhere with more of the glue mixture. Now the most fun part. Once the glue is completely dry, gently pop the balloon with a pin. Turn on a battery-operated faux pillar candle and place it inside your tissue paper lantern.
Quick trip to my local Dollarama. Separate the layers, cut the napkin so that you have enough to cover the body of the jar. Now I'm using some clear glue mixed with a tiny amount of water, paint it onto the side of the glass jar. Then lay down the paper nap and then using a piece of scrunched up plastic wrap, Use that to pat down the napkin and eliminate any wrinkles that way. Draw around the lid because that will be the right size, and cut out the piece of napkin, stick it to the bottom of the jar in the same way. Using the same process, cut out a circle for the top and a little strip for the edge and stick it in place. When it was dry, I decided to give it 2 coats of a gloss varnish. I've taken a battery-operated puck light and stuck it into the lid of the glass jar.
First, we're going to repurpose a 1-gallon glass pickle jar, and then we have some decorative nautical rope. I'm measuring out vertical strips. Now, once I get all of my strips cut, I'm going to start using my glue gun to attach them on the side of the jar. And all I'm doing is I'm evenly spacing these out, and then I'll go in the middle of those sections and put a piece of rope, and then I'll do that, continue on until all 8. And I'm just going to start somewhere and kind of glue in a few places as I'm wrapping around, and then I'll glue the other 2, and it end up being a stack of 3.
Take 2 woven tissue boxes and some round puck lights with a remote control. Glue the bottom of a puck light to the inside of a tissue box so it is centered over the hole. Run some hot glue around the top of one of the tissue boxes. Flip the other tissue box upside down and attach it to the glued top of the other box. Hang your new sconce on the wall.
Go ahead and grab yourself a tomato cage, and also grab some wood shims. Grab a scrap board, take the thick end. We're going to get a nice clean hole, and we're going to do this to all of our shims. What we're going to do is take a towel and just dip it in there, make sure it's all covered. Just wipe it on there. The sticky points that go into the ground, we don't need those. It's just going to snap right off. Now we're going to grab us some copper wire. We're going to put that through the shim with the hole in it. Just use it like a twist tie. Go all the way around. Once you get the second layer done, we're going to grab us a solar light from Dollar Tree. Take off that small part on the bottom, the stake, we don't need that, and let it float right in the middle. Now we're going to work on that last circle.
I grabbed some mirror paint and thrifted light fixtures. I added a splash of vinegar to a spray bottle with water and lightly sprayed the inside of the glass light fixture. Next, I sprayed the mirror paint on the inside and drained the extra water and paint out. I sprayed the light fixture base black. Once dry, I painted antique gold rub and buff on it, leaving some of the black showing. Once dry, I added battery fairy lights.
I'm going to stick these grasses and weeds to this glass. Cut off these extra bits on the bottom. Now I'm going to stick the tissue paper to the vase. I'm going to use a glue stick and then just rolling it, pulling it tight on this side, some more glue down, and gently stick that in place too. I'm going to go around and just trim .
I picked up a couple of these dollar store solar lights, and I'm going to take them apart. So I'm going to cover the light bulb on the bottom, and then I'm going to cover the solar panel on top, and then use a craft knife to cut around it so you get perfectly straight lines. So I'm going to untwist this screw and put that aside. I'm taking them outside, and I am adding a couple coats of a matte black spray paint. Make sure they're fully dry to the touch, and now we can assemble. So first we want to remove the painter's tape so that these solar lights work. On the clear plastic part, there are 2 little clips that help attach it to the top. And I'm just going to take some floral wire and wrap it around each one of those clips. Wrap it nice and tight so it hugs the plastic closely. And then I'm able to screw the black part back on top, and the wire is still going to hang out either side. I picked this chain up at the craft store. It is actually in the jewelry section. I'm going to thread the chain through the screw and tighten it about halfway. So I'm just going to use my floral wire and wrap it around that hoop. I want to make sure it's centered. Now I can put this middle hoop, the smaller hoop, back inside the larger one. I can tighten this screw, and it should hold together really well with tension. I sourced a couple things from the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to be using the Rust-Oleum milk paint. We are going to add our hot glue, put it into the corner. So we're going to do this in all 4 corners. So once that kind of sets, we're going to flip it over and do the other side. We are going to be taking our smaller pieces and
we're gonna be creating an X shape. And then I'm gonna come in with my hot glue gun. We are going to glue these together, painting it the same color as we did the other pieces. We are going to hot glue. All right, so we're gonna let this dry here for a moment. And that's where this comes into place. Just need this piece. We're gonna clip off this piece. We're gonna paint it. So now that this is all glued and dried, I'm gonna take a little bit of hot glue and I'm gonna put it in the hole. Now that we've attached the tumbling tower pieces, so I can go over the edges.
Headed down to a local Dollar Tree. I'll grab some rope, some clear bottles, and some cool little lights. Just take the hook off the top of the light. Next, we're going to take the bulb off. Next, we need to take the actual light mechanism and pop it out. What we need to do is paint this cover. Now on the bottle, we have a cork here. We can go ahead and just remove that. Next, I grabbed off of Amazon a bottle cutter. Put the bottle on the rollers and you go ahead and start turning it. What you want to do is hear this noise. That means you're cutting right through the bottle, but it won't cut all the way through. I'm going to show you a little cut line on there. Stick the bottle in the boiling water for a good 30 seconds. Once you got it in there and it's heated up, immediately go ahead and put it in the icy cold water. It's going to separate along the score line, and look at that. Perfect. Takes off the bottom and you got a nice flat smooth line. Put the lights back through our painted cover and clip it back on. Take some E6000 glue and place it around the edge. Take some hot glue and put it in the areas I didn't put the E6000 on. That's going to hold the cover in place while the glue is drying. I'm going to stick the lights inside the bottle, set the cover on top, then we're going to take that rope, stick some hot glue on the neck of the bottle, let that hold, and then we're going to start wrapping it all the way around the neck. And then take this extra twine, we're going to put it through the hook. I made 3 of these and we put them up.
ran down to the dollar store and picked up some pool noodles. I cut them in half lengthwise. I made sure to cut the pool noodles to the length of the bench seat, and I secured it in place using a staple gun. At this point, I also added some fabric. I chose outdoor fabric because I knew that my bench was going outdoors. I secured this in place as closely as I could to the bottom of the pool noodle, put the fabric over that piece, and secured that piece again. And I continued this pattern of noodle, fabric, so that I could create tufted channels, and the fabric would look like it goes all the way down in between the different pool noodle pieces. When I got to the end of the bench, I again took that last piece of pool noodle, wrapped it around the back edge of the wood, and secured it in place. Now I needed to add the legs. I had ordered these legs off of Amazon. All I had to do was secure them in place using the screws that came in the box.
Today's project starts with a pool noodle. We're going to take a piece of duct tape and use that to hold it in place. Once we got our 3 rings together, we're going to stack them up. Once I get that, I'm going to cut some more pool noodles and they're going to stack inside. We need them to be level with the top. Start on the outside and work your way to the end. Now you're going to start on one end and go ahead and slice your tape and put it on the bottom. Go across the 3 pool noodles, across the top, down the bottom. We're actually going to need to cover the whole thing in duct tape because we're going to need to apply some hot glue to it. And then right in the middle, I'm going to put a first dab of hot glue. I'm going to take this rope right here, this cotton rope, and go ahead and put it on there.
The next time you're at Dollar Tree, grab yourself some of their succulent picks. Also going to want to grab some of their foam pool noodles. I decided I wanted to paint my frame. Flip the frame over. I'm going to use the pool noodle as a measuring guide, and then I'm going to cut it exactly so it fits in the little ledge of the frame. And then I'm going to cut the pool noodle directly in half. I'm going to take some E6000 and I'm going to glue just the edges of the frame and the edges of the pool noodle, and I'm going to place the pool noodle into the frame, but making sure that the curved side is going to be facing out. Then once it's fully set, I'm going to come in here and create my own little backings. And then just to make the back a little prettier, I have this green fabric that I'm just going to lay over top, and then I'm going to take a stapler and I'm going to staple it around. I'm going to start with some moss. So I have some reindeer moss here. I'm going to come in with the succulent picks that I picked up from the dollar store, add a bit of hot glue to the edge, and then I'm going to work them in.
Going to go right down the center and just cut them in half so that I have that flat edge to go flush against the board. Space the noodles out with a little bit of spacing in between, and then attach them also with the staple gun for some added stability. I worked in sections of about 4 at a time, sprayed a little bit of spray adhesive on, and then just kind of used my hands to firmly work the leather into the channels. I trimmed the edge at the corner and then just tucked it over and secured it tightly with a little bit of spray adhesive and then also more of the staples. Once that corner was secure, I just worked my way down.
Today we're working with pool noodles. First, you want to cut the pool noodle in half to slit them right down the center. And then we're going to fold our noodle open. So I'm going to cut this all the way through. And then I'm going to turn these upside down. So I'm going to put my glue. This is cool melt, so it's not super, super hot. And then you're going to place that. Okay, so now I'm attaching the second piece and we will insert our third piece. Okay, our glue is dry. So now I'm going to trim off the ends. We are now going to put a tray on here and we're going to decorate it.
Head over to your local Walmart and grab a few sprigs of greenery. I place the pool noodle next to the top of the planter and mark the lines. Then I cut the pool noodle with a knife to the mark. After that, I place the pool noodle pieces along with some empty water bottles inside the planter to keep everything in the center and weighted down. Then I placed the sprigs of faux greenery inside the holes of the pool noodles and fluffed it all out.
Cut 2-inch sections of our pool noodle. We're going to have 1 in the center and 6 around the outside. And we're going to place it on the top. You want to cut all the way around. Cut that small piece out of my noodle. And then your candle will fit in there just like this. Now I'm going to connect them. I'm using a hot glue gun, but it is on a low temperature. I have a big rubber band in my hand, and I'm going to put that around here and let this dry.
So here's the big secret. Every pool noodle has a hole in it. So I'm gonna stick the pool noodle onto the faucet like this. Next, I take the other end of the pool noodle and I hold it down so that it aims in the center of the bucket. I turn the water on slowly and I just wait to fill the bucket to the level I want. Now, how easy is this? Now I'm ready to get mopping. Now, a lot of people have trouble with drafts coming in under doors. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take a pool noodle and I'm gonna measure my door. What I picked up was a pillowcase from the dollar store. I'm gonna take this pool noodle, stick it inside. I'm gonna lay it back down on the table so it's nice and flat. I'm gonna go ahead and just wind it. So I'm gonna put a little dab of hot glue here, and then I'm just gonna run this along the edge. So this end is open because this is the top of the pillowcase. So all I'm gonna do is stick the pillowcase into the hole. Velcro adhesive. So I'm gonna go ahead and peel off the adhesive and I'm gonna place it. Now I have peeled the backing off and I'm going to stick it to the door. Here it is on the door, and I can still open and close the door with ease. So what I've got here is a pool noodle from an old project that's already cut. And then what I need to do from here is just take a pen or pencil or marker and just kind of mark where this spot is. I'm just gonna go ahead and make a slit into about half of the pool noodle. Next, I'm gonna flip the noodle over, and I've got these great little picture holder strips, and you're gonna wanna put it on the back side of where each of these are. So I start by peeling the backing off. And now I stick and press it on the wall, and I need to wait 30 seconds at minimum. I just open the pool noodle like so, and I stick my broom handle inside. Here they are all hung up, and I'm just absolutely thrilled with how easy this was and how it turned out.
I picked up some brown paper bags for these styrofoam balls in various sizes. And the first thing we're gonna need to do is cut. We're gonna start with some Mod Podge. And we do wanna add a lot of this Mod Podge to keep this bag in place. You can just take the rest of the bag and you can just kind of twist it around. So I have 3 beautiful yellow tulips. So to start, we're gonna cut our stem. So while the Mod Podge is still wet, I'm just gonna kind of unravel the bulb a little bit. Take the end of our tulip, poke it right into the styrofoam, and then just take that brown paper bag and kind of squish it around. So we're gonna take some of those scrap stems that we got from the tulips, and we only need a little length. So we're gonna insert into the styrofoam ball. Just take our stems and poke them right in.
I'm going to just start and wrap this over and under the front edge. I'm going to take my wisteria and I'm going to lay it here the way I want, and then I'm just going to take zip ties. Those will hold securely even in the wind. I'm just going to tuck that down out of the way for right now. Now these are more like a wisteria bush, and I'm going to spread this out a little, and I'm just going to add this one right to the middle in the front right here. And I'm just going to continue to add these right along the front like so. I bought some beautiful silk peony bushes, and I'm going to cut them apart, spread these out, and I'm going to tuck these right in for some beautiful color.
I grabbed a ladle from my kitchen and a dollar store plastic pot. We're going to start by hot gluing our ladle directly to the container. Now that the glue is hardened, we're going to come back in with even more hot glue on the base of our ladle. And the bottom part is actually a cake stand that I got on clearance. So now we're going to just hold this here for a minute while it hardens up. And what we're going to do is snip off each flower stem individually. So after dipping them in your glue skillet, apply a generous amount of hot glue, and then what you can start doing is gluing it right to the handle of your ladle. Just continue working in even more beautiful flowers.
Take 2 styrofoam blocks and glue them together using a cool melt glue gun. Take that wire hanger and bend it. Take 2 pipe cleaners and twist the ends together. Do this as well with another set of 2 pipe cleaners. Position the wire hanger hook on top of the styrofoam block and secure it by wrapping the pipe cleaners up and around the hook. Twist the ends securely and tuck them in. Start to stick the faux stems into the top and sides of the styrofoam block. Now take some faux flowers, continue to fill in the empty spaces with other flowers, and hang your new flower arrangement.
Grab 2 paper towel holders and some faux flowers from the Dollar Tree. Press a foam block down into one of the paper towel holders. Flip the other paper towel holder over and press it into the foam block again. Attach the 2 paper towel holders with some floral wire or some zip ties. Cut the large stems from the faux flowers and start placing the flowers all over the foam block. Grab another foam block and repeat this process. Finish this easy centerpiece by hanging some faux crystals for some extra glam. Hot glue that foam block on top of the paper towel holder.
Alex actually picked this up for me from Target for $5. So we're gonna cut this about an inch or so. So I essentially just painted a little bit of glue on top of the foam. Then we can come back to our container and just place it on like that. And we're gonna start with this as a nice base. Up next, we have a few dollar store flowers. So we'll start with one color at a time. So we're gonna start with some bricks of dry floral foam. This is a glue skillet. And then we'll take those 2 bricks and we're going to stick them together. Now that we've given it a minute, now we can come back in with more hot glue and we're gonna secure this to the base of the container. Now we'll give this a minute to harden up. Now we have this beautiful hanging geranium bush. So we're gonna start by taking the stem and just working it right into the styrofoam. Up next, we're gonna work in some delphinium. Now we have some of these pretty pink flowers. So these are just inexpensive filler bushes. And to bring out a little bit more pink, we're gonna use this ranunculus bush. So we're just gonna take this whole bush, find the perfect spot, and then we can separate the flowers.
Head to your local Dollar Tree and grab a candlestick, some small plastic plates, a styrofoam block, and some floral pieces. First, you'll want to attach the top of the plate to the candlestick. I just use simple hot glue for this. Then you're going to want to spray paint the piece to the color of your liking. Let it dry completely and then attach the styrofoam block to the finished paper plate. I use B7000 glue for this. Then remove all the stems from the floral pieces using wire cutters. You can then attach these floral pieces into the styrofoam block all around the plate.
Here I am at Dollar Tree. I'm going to start this project with a couple of grease splatter screens. Take the screen off. We have this little cone, so I'm just going to cut that. So this is just a Dollar Tree candle holder, and we have our piece of foam, and then we have the 2 metal rings. I want to cut Gorilla Clear Grip and hot glue because I want it to stay. You want the pretty side on the outside. A little mini glue stick cut in half gave it a little bit more support. Put down in there. And I'm just going to take and wrap that right around a generous amount of hot glue on the back of the acrylic gems. But I think I'd like to add a row of them down here also. I'm gonna put hot glue right down on our mirror. And I have one of these small discs of foam like you can get at Dollar Tree, and I'm gonna put that right down on there. I have all kinds of these pink Dollar Tree roses, and you're gonna cut them off and then add a little dollop of hot glue, and we're just going to stick these right to the foam. I want to put our candle in there. I picked up 2 of these paper towel holders from the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to turn one upside down, and I am going to zip tie these together really tightly. So here we are, and I'm just going to cut these off. I'm going to paint my whole thing gold. I bought these 4" by 4" photo frames from the Dollar Tree that have gold glitter around them. And then I bought these mirrors that are 4" by 4". I am going to hot glue them. I'm going to take and glue these to one another and take out all of the little easels that hold up the picture frames. What I'm going to do is put my glue gun on low temperature, and I am going to stick this piece of styrofoam on top of this piece of styrofoam. We're going to take our paper towel holder that we have painted, and we're going to push that right down in there. I'm going to add a bead of hot glue, and then I'm going to secure it with some S-pins. I have some acrylic crystal drops and some very fine wire, and I'm going to feed some of these acrylic crystal drops onto my wire. And you're going to hang them right on the top part of your paper towel holders, and you're just going to twist that. I have almost a 7" craft foam. Slide it right over top. I'm going to add a bead of low temperature hot glue and some S-pins. I'm just going to take each individual little floret off of them using low temp glue. I'm going to add just a little bit of glue, and I'm going to start covering my styrofoam ball. And what I need to do now is decorate this bottom part right here.
I have this small 24" wide sink that really doesn't allow me to fit much on its surface at all. So I ran to the hardware store and picked up some wood. Once I got home, I determined how high I wanted my shelf to be. I have a pretty high faucet, so I needed to make mine pretty tall. You'll adjust yours to the height that's appropriate for you. I cut my wood to the appropriate length. Then I simply placed the 2 pieces of wood together using an L bracket. I didn't want the rough edge of the wood to show on top of my shelf, so I made sure to attach the L bracket in a way that the rough edge stayed underneath the top part of the shelf. I set it into place and started playing around with how I wanted to organize my things on this new shelf. You could also, of course, finish this to your desired look. You could stain the wood or paint it or whatever goes great in your bathroom.
I used 2 tension rods for this brilliant storage solution. I placed them between my washing machine and wall, which is an awkward, unused space. I made sure they were both level, and then I got a piece of wood to fit on top. I trimmed another scrap piece of wood for the front, and I used a brad nailer to secure them together. I grabbed shelf liner from the dollar store and stuck it to the wood to make it look like one large thick board. I trimmed the edges and placed it on top of the tension rods, and now I have a solution for more storage in my laundry room that actually looks good. I hope this inspires you to make use of those awkward spaces and make these easy tension rod shelves.
Pick up a couple of bins and these barnwood boards at Walmart. These boards are already prepped and ready to go. We just need to remove the twine from the back. Now I want to add a little detail to this. So I'm going to use just a paper number stencil, and I'm going to add a stencil number to the top of each board. To the bottom, I want to add a little knob. Now, if you're using thicker wood, you can absolutely drill a hole and use the screw that comes with these knobs. Since this is very thin wood, I'm just going to use some super glue to attach it. Now I want to place the board on the bin. The bin doesn't sit completely flat against the board, so I'm using some thick Gorilla mounting tape on the clear bin, and then I'm going to press the board on there really well. You can either set something heavy on top of this or use clamps to hold it in place for about 30 minutes until it cures. And I'm going to hide some craft supplies that don't really fit anywhere else. I have this beautiful clean look on the outside, and I can easily access everything I need when I pull these out. I hope this inspired you to grab some bins and use this creative way to hide some of your items.
I grabbed this towel rod for the best kitchen hack. I used a stud finder to locate the studs. I wanted to drill at least one end of the towel rack into the studs. I put one end of the towel rack on, placed the level on top, and marked where the other side of the towel rack needed to be so that the rod would be level. For this side, I used drywall anchors to ensure a strong hold. Then I grabbed some black shower curtain rings, placed them on the towel rack, and hung my favorite cutting boards and frying pan. Now I have modern kitchen decor that was so quick and easy.
Grab some pegboard hooks and shelves from your local dollar store and buy some inexpensive pegboards. Do you have leftover peel and stick wallpaper from wallpapering a wall or other project? Lay your wallpaper face down on a table and position the pegboards on the paper with a few inches of space between each pegboard. Outline each pegboard with a pencil and cut out each piece of wallpaper, including an additional inch outside the outline. With some sharp scissors, cut out the corners of the wallpaper. Peel the backing off the wallpaper and lay the pegboard face down on the sticky side of the paper. Press down firmly so you know the wallpaper is sticking. Wrap the outer edges of the wallpaper up and over the side edges of the pegboard. Take a screwdriver, pencil, or other poker-type object and poke holes through the wallpaper and into the pegboard holes. You can do this for feeling for the pegboard holes with your finger or by holding it up to the light to see the hole. Hang the pegboard with the hardware provided so it is secure on the wall. Line up with the wallpaper pattern on your wall with the covered pegboard. The hardest part is sometimes matching up the pattern on the wall, but once you find it, it is so fun to line it up and see the pegboard disappear into the matching pattern. Insert the pegboard hooks into the wallpapered pegboard to hold your keys, or hang a pegboard shelf to hold dryer sheets in your laundry room. Style with pretty home decor, or use to store functional items, or both. I hope this inspired you to create some inexpensive and stylish storage.
Run down to the hardware store and grab a stick of oak. This is a 1x2 by 9 foot long. Also going to get some of these command hooks. They're great and non-permanent. I have this end piece on my cabinet on the top and the bottom, and I know there's something I can do with it. First thing I'm going to do is measure my cabinets, and I'm going to make a couple of marks at 31 inches. I'm going to cut 2 of these boards at this size. If I need to go ahead and sand the edges, I'll do that. The next 2 are going to be the top cuts, and those are going to be cut at 20 inches and 3/4. I'm going to go ahead and join those up, but first, I want to put some glue on the end. That's going to make this joint super strong. So all it takes is a little glue on the end, and then I'm going to use some brad nails. 2 of those inside will work just fine. Once I get those all done, it's a strong joint. No worries about it breaking. And I'm going to size up all 4 of them. I'm going to put a railing down the middle. I did run out of oak, so I had to use some pine wood. Once I get that done, I'm going to go up about 5.5 inches and measure across because I'm going to put a railing on. Again, I had to use some pine wood for this. And once I get that on, it just takes 1 brad nail on each side to hold it together. Now, once I got those on and it's super strong, I need to use some pre-stained wood conditioner. When you're using pine, it's a soft wood, unlike oak, which is a hardwood. When I go to stain the pine, it's going to be all blotchy. So only on the pine do I need to take this pre-stain and put it on. It doesn't take much, just 1 little dip was able to do the whole thing. Let this dry about 30 minutes and then come back and we're going to stain it. Now, my cabinets had kind of an orangey color to it, so I went with a maple look. I could have gone with pecan, but maple seems to be the closest match. I'm going to cover all the sides of the boards, make sure I get the oak and the pine and all the ends. Now it's time to hook it up, put it together. Look at that color, it matches pretty good. I'm going to use just a few of those brad nails that go through the boards and into the cabinets, and it's going to hold it on. Once I get all of those on and it's ready and adhered nice, I'm going to take those command strips. They're easy to use. You just got to peel off the back on one, put it on the hook, and then make sure it's nice and secure, and then peel off the other edge. Then you can take it and put it on the cabinet. I'm going to go ahead and put 2 of these on, and they're actually really great. They stick good. They're also removable and not permanent. Now take your family cookbook or any book that you like, put it in there. I'm going to use some of those oven mitts. That's what that railing was all about. And then I'm going to use those command strips and hooks to put on some of the utensils that I use the most. And I tell you what, this thing turned out so well, and the color matched so good it almost looks like it was built in. I think it turned out great, and I'm actually really happy with it. My wife has always been wanting some more storage space in the laundry room. It starts with this little gap between the washer and the dryer. I need some 1x8s and 1x3s. Then I need to measure in between the washer and dryer to get the width. This one seems to be 24 inches. And then I need to get the height, and it's exactly 36 inches. So let's start measuring and cutting boards. We're going to cut 2 boards of the 1x8s at 32.5. Once we get both of those boards cut, what we're going to then do is go ahead and mark the next boards, and we're going to mark 2 of those at 24 inches. And then we need 2 more on the 1x8s at 22.5. We're going to take all these boards and cut them. Now, I'm using my miter saw. You can definitely use a jigsaw if you need to also. Once we get the front and the back cut, these are the longer boards, we're going to put the bottom on. This is our first 24-inch board. Now, I like to use my little brad nailer. You can definitely use screws if you want, but again, I will always say, make sure you pre-drill, especially towards the ends of the boards. If you pre-drill, you're less likely to split the boards. Now, once we get the bottom on, we're going to put the middle shelf on. I'm going to go 17 inches from the top. That's going to give me enough room to put some items on there and not worry if I'm running out of room or not. Again, I'm using the brad nailer to put this board in. Now, every shelf is going to need a little barrier to keep everything in. So, what we're going to do is cut these 1x3s that I got. We're going to put those on the inside. Now, if you're sick of measuring, just use each board, the first one you cut, and use it to mark and cut the rest. Every shelf is going to need a little board on each side. That's going to hold our items in. Again, using that brad nailer. Once I put that first side piece in on the bottom shelf, I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to put the next one on. Also, I'm going to nail it from the bottom. That's going to make it super strong. Now, some of these cuts don't line up exactly perfect. That's okay, because we're going to sand it later. Once you run that sander up and down, it's going to get those edges nice and smooth. A lot of this wood is rough. That's okay. Once we get that on the bottom, we're going to put some wheels. Definitely need 4 of them. Now, these are caster wheels. Again, since we're towards the edge of the board, make sure you pre-drill. And we want to make sure the screws we put in are not too long. There's nothing worse than those popping out at the bottom. Once we get that wheel on, it's going to be perfect. Look how it spins just like this. It's great. Now for the top. That's the last board we got, and it's 24 inches. And I got a surprise. We're going to put a hinge on the back. As you can tell, this is definitely the back of the board just because of that little blemish on that piece of wood right there. Once we get that hinge on, look at that. I've got a little hiding shelf right there. Now, what I need to do is sand it. A lot of these boards feel smooth, but we want to sand them because they got a little bit of a film on them. So run some 80 grit, then up to 220, run it up and down the sides and make it look nice. And then you can either paint or put your favorite stain on. I like to stain it with a rag. Makes it go on and nice and even for me. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to get this all stained up. I'm going to put a handle on it, and it's time to put it in place. And just look at that. It fits right in between the washer and the dryer. And with that handle, I can pull it out and store all my items there. Now, the best part about that little hidden spot on top is you don't have to pull it out every time. This is going to have our pods, and we can also grab our dryer sheets, so we're not pulling it out between every load. I hope this inspired you to build your own laundry room extra storage container. Thank you for watching Home Talk.